Okay, we're on the air. We are live. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Counselor Whitfield?
Here.
Counselor Morocco?
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Here.
Counselor Gilat?
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi is absent. Counselor Peeler?
Here.
Counselor Lavin?
Here.
Counselor Brennan?
Here.
Mayor Valentino?
Here. So tonight we have 3 public hearings, and before I jump into the public hearing, I'd like to thank Mary Benamino. She brought in some cupcakes for us to celebrate Councilor Gilat's 70th birthday, which was yesterday. So congratulations.
Yeah. Happy birthday. I beat the over-under.
Okay, we'll start with our first public hearing. I'd like to open up the public hearing for the sale of city-owned property at 63 Gates Avenue. I do not have anybody signed up, but if there's anybody in the audience that would like to come and speak about that property sale, please come to the podium. Just looking for my gavel. Call that public hearing closed. Move on to the next public hearing, which is commencing Chapter 111 enforcement at 314, 316 Castle Street. That public hearing is now open, and I do have one person signed up, Dan Long. Please come to the podium.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Long. I'm an architect, and I'm sort of representing the owners right now. We're working with them on the cleaning up of the property and redevelopment. It's been, as you know, a very long road on that one, and I would like to give kudos to the city and to the Code Enforcement Office for allowing us all the additional time that probably would not have been granted to other property owners, since it is somewhat of a unique property and unique to the neighborhood of the Oak Street, Castle Street area. So I just wanted to give you an update. We are still pursuing bids from various contractors like Sessler Wrecking, Rock Environmental. We've gauged the services of Lozier Engineering, which are an environmental engineering company, to do what we call an ACM survey, asbestos containing materials survey. I'm sure you're familiar with that situation. Luckily, this building doesn't have a lot of it, just because of the nature of the structure. It does have some minor ones. It's what we call non-friable. It's the glue under the floor tile in some of the areas. The recommendation at this point, we're awaiting the report from Lozier, is that they're going to say it's going to be demolition under abatement. So that means basically we're saying there's no friable material, so there's nothing that will get into the air and create an environmental issue. But there are materials in there, because they do contain asbestos, we still need to dispose of them in an approved dump site. So it's not the cheapest, but it's not the most expensive. Again, we're looking at making sure we have all of those T's crossed and I's dotted, so that when we do receive the final estimates from these contractors, Rock Environmental especially was very, I've had a lot of experience with them. They were awaiting that report to make sure they can give us a solid estimate to do demolition, which you can imagine any contractor would. And it limits some of the contractors we can use. We can't just bring somebody in there that doesn't have an abatement certification. You can't just hire Joe Schmo to come in and just knock the building down and find out later there was asbestos containing materials, and then you can't, put that genie back in the box. So at this time, our time frame is we're looking at receiving those revised estimates by the end of this month. We're moving forward with an award possibly by August 1st, second week of August. We're not asking for an extension of this amendment that you're looking at putting forward. We understand you've held off. You've given us more than enough time to try to work these things out, and we certainly do appreciate that. But we hope we will beat your deadlines with the amendments that you're going to be considering tonight, moving forward with your 111 action. And I just want to let you know that's what we're doing. I personally would like to see this place cleaned up and further development happen. We missed out on our New York State grant back in the day with the cooperation with the city, and that was unfortunate. But we're still continuing forward to putting future plans for redevelopment on this property. With the zoning amendments that were approved last year, we think it allows us a lot more flexibility to design the property and to develop the property, and we certainly do appreciate City Council for considering those updates to the zoning code. And we look forward to working with the city on, unfortunately, time has passed, and we know the city needs to move forward with what they need to do. We don't hold that against the city, and we're going to continue to do what we need to do to get the property in the shape it needs to be. It'd be a benefit for the city. So that's what I have for now as an update. And I'll continue. I've had consultation with both Neil and Mr. Venuti as far as what our plans are and what we're doing, and I've shared some more proprietary numbers information that I can't share in a public hearing. I could probably do it in an executive session, but we don't want to, unfortunately, taint the bids from an estimate standpoint. But I try to be as open as I possibly can, and even more so with, I'm sure, people that can hold that information in confidence. So that's what I have for right now, Mayor.
Thank you
And,
for the update. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Public hearing is still open for the Chapter 11 enforcement at 314, 316. Please approach the podium.
Hello, my name is Linda Equinazzi, and I've been a resident of Geneva and lived at 426 Castle Street for over 24 years. Over 3 years ago, on May 10th, 2022, around 3:50 p.m., a blaze broke out and essentially gutted the plaza located at 314-16 Castle Street. Since then, the destroyed building has sat in disrepair. On April 6, 2025, I started a petition on the website change.org respectfully asking the owners of the property to remove this building as it's an environmental hazard and an eyesore on our community. As of today, July 2nd, 2025, the petition has 561 signatures. While we recognize the removal of the building is complicated, 3 years should have been sufficient time to plan and remove the destroyed building with the least amount of environmental damage to Castle Creek, which empties into Seneca Lake. The owners have missed several deadlines proposed by the city, have delayed this demolition, and failed to act responsibly. How should an owner act once a building on their property is destroyed? For example, on January 21st, 2025, a major fire destroyed 5 businesses and left 15 to 20 apartment units damaged or destroyed in nearby Ovid. Cleanup on this fire concluded in May of 2025, 5 months later. Due to the above, I encourage the city to start the Geneva Municipal Code Chapter 111 enforcement process to this unsafe structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open. If anybody else would like to speak on the commencing Chapter 111.
Yes, good evening. My name is Sharon Hogan. I reside at 391 Castle Street and have lived there for approximately 40 years. For years, we had the pleasure of a local grocery store and laundromat in our neighborhood. Sadly, Media's Grocery closed their store and sold the property to Sheree Mooney, LLC, and Makish Patel. In May of 2022, under the new property owners, a devastating fire destroyed the building that once housed Media's Groceries and the adjacent laundromat located at 316 Castle Street, the property in question. Despite the passage of time, the damaged structure remains standing, posing not only an environmental and safety hazard, but also an eyesore to our community. The structure in question has been marked as condemned for an extended period of time. It would be greatly appreciated if this condemned structure was raised and an establishment suitable for our neighborhood was put in its place. I would also further note that recent construction by DDS contractors and NYSEG that were replacing existing gas lines in our neighborhood tore up the old sidewalk adjacent to 316 Castle Street. and within a week's time, completely replaced the sidewalk with a new one. So their timeliness and prompt attention was greatly appreciated, and it would seem only logical that the owners of the burned-out structure would please do the same to rid our neighborhood of this eyesore. In addition to Mr. Long's comments, having been an environmental health and safety manager before I retired, I guess I would question the amount of asbestos-containing material that would still be existing in the building, consider the nature and the intensity of that fire. Because I watched that building burn that entire afternoon and late into the evening, and our Geneva Fire Department battled that blaze that kept resurging time and time again over the course of multiple hours. So if there's any ACM material, it possibly could be in the laundromat, but I'd have a hard time believing there's any ACM in that structure that was actually the grocery store and the convenience store. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the public hearing is open, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur Equinazi. I live at 426 Castle Street, just down from the previous Medallas. The building burned, about 3 years ago, and it has just been delay after delay from the current owners. I don't want to be standing here in 5 years, hearing about all of their bids and their contracts and the funding didn't come through. When you have a property, you have insurance. The property burns, you use the insurance money to take care of business. This has stood abandoned and condemned for much, much too long. It's time to take action and let the property owners pay what they need to pay. My vote would be to go through with the 111 and get the area moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the public hearing for the Chapter 111? We'll call that public hearing closed and move on to our next public hearing, which is the CDBG program and New York State 2025 Consolidated Funding Application. That public hearing is now open. No one comes to the podium. We'll call that public hearing closed. And before we move on, I want to make a motion to amend the agenda. I want to add, I'll call it old business, an amendment to the resolution supporting the proposed Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad byway. We voted on this last year and there's a minor adjustment, so I'd like to add this to the agenda, and I so move. Second, please. Second by Councilor Lavin. Clerk, please call the roll on amending the agenda to add the resolution.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye. Thank
Motion
you very
carried.
much. Next on our agenda is a presentation, recreation study overview by our city manager.
Well, and this is going to be very easy for your city manager because I'm going to actually turn it over to the staff that helped us do this. And so we brought in Beardsley, who assisted with all of it. And I realize I can't see where it says start slideshow. There we are. And so Jared will kind of take over from here and introduce himself and walk through the rec study, which we commissioned previously to look at the recreation complex before we make decisions on how the operations and the various components of the rec complex exist. So, Jared?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Jared Heinel. I'm a principal with Beardsley Architects and Engineers in Auburn. I oversee our Parks and Recreation and Civic practice area of our firm. And as Amy mentioned, we've been engaged by the city to provide a fairly high-level review of kind of three major scope areas, one being a review of prior work and documentation, a public outreach and research component, and conceptual planning for various improvement scenarios. Just a brief recap on the history of the property. The original construction was in the late 70s, with some fairly significant capital projects in the 2000s. The main bones of the structure remain unchanged from the original 70s construction. Obviously, the biggest improvement being the enclosure in the 2000s. Go ahead. There's a lot of mention of the facility and other various community planning efforts. They all generally speak to, I'm sure as you know, speak to the importance of it as a proximity to downtown and importance to the community. There's not been a lot of deep dive on the facility itself that we have been aware of, at least. But it's mentioned, considerably in all of these studies. I'm going to keep moving pretty quickly today. I know you have a pretty full agenda, so I'm happy to follow up with questions during this presentation or through Amy afterwards if you have any. The high-level review of the existing conditions is, most of the systems, including the ice rink refrigeration, are original and in badly need of replacement or repair. The ice refrigeration equipment in particular is of a generation that is not serviceable anymore and parts no longer remain. So I know it's a big challenge for the city to maintain that system. So that's a serious consideration, obviously. The overall building envelope and site and what I'd call the bones of the building are in sound shape and we think worthy of rehabilitation. Can keep going. The community outreach process included a series of interviews and email exchanges between city planning and various constituency groups, and we facilitated a public workshop in April, to try to coax out community concerns, things community loves or hates about the facility, how it works. Some of these quotes are pretty representative of much other feedback we received. Obviously, a lot of the feedback was relative to the hockey program. It's primarily an ice rink function, but we did hear a lot about summer functions, the dog park, and other ways the facility is used. I think the overwhelming feedback was it's a valuable resource to the community. I think the public recognizes that it's aging and investment is needed. There's obviously different opinions on what the level of investment should be or how it's funded, but it's obviously a large asset that is in need of some work. You can kind of keep moving if you'd like. Yes, that's pretty much what I summarized already, so we can keep moving along. So we, for the purpose of this presentation and the study, kind of investigated a couple of different levels of project scenarios to address the facility. The first scenario being basically in-kind rehabilitation. One major functional issue is, many of you probably are aware, is just circulation during games especially. There's a lot of cross-traffic between limited locker room spaces, public restrooms, athlete restrooms, intake, egress. The whole lobby area is very confusing and convoluted, as well as just overall physical condition. So one scenario is basically would be a facelift and infrastructure work, but we see few opportunities for changes that really correct some of these functional deficiencies, just given the structure configuration as it is now. It's a block bearing wall building. It's not the way it's kind of cut up, especially at that kind of head house of the building. It's difficult to deal with. But there is a scenario where a facelift infrastructure improvements are possible. The second, what we see as a pretty practical approach would be maintaining the existing main rink form as it is, improving within it where needed, but demolishing and replacing the in this case planned east end of the building, all the locker room and back of house spaces. The site is obviously quite constrained by grades, parking, property lines, but we do see this as a viable path to demolish both the existing, what I'll call it the head house of the rink, as well as the adjacent maintenance building, and infill that space with a replacement facility that would allow expansion of team rooms, concessions, and various other community amenities. Some of the feedback we received from the public engagement workshop and elsewhere kind of was circled around evolving the facility from a hockey rink to a more of a community center function. So if you skip ahead, we see a scenario where you could demolish and replace that end of the building to gain as much of those functions as possible. There's a lot of hybrids on how far to go with this, whether single story or two story, and how much square footage is feasible. But we think this approach would get 6 to 8 team rooms, additional better athletic officials facilities, and aid with tournaments and things like that. Again, there's a lot of hybrids and variants on these, but this is one scenario. And the third, for mostly for information, I think it's less feasible. I think just physically in this case, but we did investigate a replacement facility in like full demolition and replacement in kind essentially. This is based on a very close parallel facility that's being built right now in Minnesota, and it happened to be a very similar program being constructed in today's dollars. For a range of costs, the facelift range is likely in the $8 to $10 million range, the middle ground in the high teens, and this scenario is 30 million plus kind of scenario. I will add the replacement scenario is also very challenging with site constraints given the site conditions that are there, and would probably involve a substantial look at reconfiguring all the city parking in that area, potential property acquisitions and other things. I think all these things that should be considered between the staff and the city are, one key thing is there's a tendency to look at projects like this as, it's a lot of money obviously, look at more incremental, smaller projects. We do find in our business that it's very difficult. The economy of scale by having a larger capital project is significant versus picking away at smaller projects over time. You do tend to pay quite a premium investing in small projects along the way. But budget realities are what they are, so I understand there's issues. The current kind of next steps as we see them are continuing to work with the city to help refine a preferred option and investigating that further to get better budget assessments. There is a grant program that's available in this year's state budget it's administered by DASNY. It's called the BRICS program. It's for community center development. They have a top tier range that provides funds in the $5 to $15 million range. So Amy's aware of that. We're working together on a potential application that can be considered. That program is circled around community centers, multi-use community centers. So we think that by incorporating some multi-purpose rooms, gym spaces, not just athletics, not just hockey or turf uses, the building can be more well-rounded and more well used year-round. So I'm sorry, I know that was very quick and high level, but
Yep, please.
So again, the scope on this study was kind of on the small side. It didn't get into engineering. It didn't get into total design. That's all a decision that council will have to look at. The public hearings, we've been talking a lot about consolidated funding application. New York State Bricks is actually outside of that. They give you an extra 2 weeks to complete that application. Consolidated funding applications are due at the end of July, and that funding source is through August 15th. So you get a little extra time. If that were an area we would want to pursue, as Jared mentioned, that does take in the community center focus. There is local costs with all of these types of things. If you were awarded that, I believe that one's 20% local cost. That does not necessarily mean it's 20% city cost. You could have other partners work on that if that were a direction you want to go. I know the timing is a little imperfect because it's just when the funding cycle works with the state budget and we have this. But I do want to give that, and council does have a meeting next week. So we can bring that back because there's also probably some other requirements within that grant that we would need just from council. One being you have to identify yourself as a lead agency for seeker because we are moving the earth if we were to get that grant. I don't know that we will. There are many of those grants, but not enough for everyone that's going to apply for it. But it is something to look at, and it is focused on community centers, and it even talks about rink and complexes. So there is some promise to it.
Thank you very much.
okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next on our agenda is a discussion for MAP Grant Selection Committee by Councilor Peeler.
Thank you. So previously, we had an executive session where we were able to review some of the materials from MAP, and I thought that was very helpful. And it's called BEST now?
Yes.
So it's called BEST now. So if there's any confusion when people look it up online, MAP is the Micro Enterprise Assistance Program. It's where we're a pass-through agency to provide funding and grant opportunities for local businesses. And the discussion that I would like to lead or at least have is what is our role, if any, in that process? Because before we really didn't have a role other than being the receiver of information, largely after it's all said and done, and then just to approve it openly when it starts. And my opinion, after we reviewed all of this information, is that it would be beneficial, since I think we did learn some things in that session, that we include I don't foresee any type of reasonable approach to bring council in there as the whole council, but I think like many of our boards and commissions, there would be a absolute benefit to include a council member in the panel, just as a liaison, just as an observer of these processes. And if anyone else wants to chime in or even speak about it, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think what would be helpful, and I need help here, is to understand the current makeup of the committee and maybe the decision-making process and maybe the recommendation to add a council liaison or two to that. How would we do that?
So the current makeup of the committee, when we've received this award in the past, has been members of the IDA, LDC, BID, and then it's coordinated by whoever the executive director of the IDA is, or which tends to be city staff. So they coordinate that process. They have an application program that we have to follow state guidelines. We put out an application. The businesses see what the scoring rubric is on that application. That committee comes together, reviews the rubrics, and then makes the suggested choices of what applicants receive that.
So to add a council liaison or two, what would that take?
It could be as simple as the mayor appointing someone to that panel.
Okay. Great. Okay. So I think I'd like to have input from counselors, because I think this is a great program. It helps start businesses in the city of Geneva, and to maybe have a little more insight or input into that program. How do the counselors feel about that? Councilor Lavin?
It would be a non-voting
Yeah.
liaison, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Councilor?
I don't think that hurts at all to have a counselor on pretty much any board or commission, or at least a liaison, or, somebody from council, just oversee it, make sure everything's above ground, that sort of thing. So I'm good with it.
Is there current activity? Because I know we,
That panel only comes together for the review of the rubric.
okay.
And we don't have a grant right now. We are just applying for the grant. If we get the grant funding, then there would be activity. If we don't, and it is CDBG funds, so there may or may not be activity on this.
So between now and the end of this year, if there's any councilors interested in being a liaison on this committee, please let me know. After that, they're gonna have to ask the next mayor. Okay?
The buck is.
Any further discussion? I think progress, good. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a CDBG Facilities Grant Application, replacement of the 2006 fire engine by Chief Parada.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had the opportunity over the past few weeks to work with our grants coordinator, Ms. Sutton, and we are seeking council discussion and some guidance as we are attempting to request the city's financial participation in this grant application. We're looking to replace a 2006 fire engine that is past its service life, and it's also past its reserve service life this year in 2026 coming up. It's up to $1 million award in the grant. The estimates we're getting for the replacement of the engine is between 1.2 and 1.1 and 1.2 million. So the city would have to cover expenses over $1 million. Again, we're looking for discussion and guidance from council on this. Most of the information should be in your briefing.
And there is a match requirement to it, so council would have to cover at least $100,000 if it comes in under $1 million. You still have to cover that matching requirement, and we will receive $5,000 in administration costs. That is something that we didn't look at initially, but because we will be administering it, there will be some cost relief there.
So Chief, before we keep discussing, just help us understand a vehicle this size, when you place an order, how long does it take to get, resale value, anything like that, or projected, not replacement costs, but projected maintenance costs?
Yeah, so anytime you put fire emergency services on something, that stamp comes with a high maintenance cost for some reason. We spend about $30,000 to $40,000 a year maintaining our vehicles. Currently, the one that we're trying to replace last year cost us $14,000 in maintenance, and that number is just going to keep on going up. In addition to that, just the standards say we should not be operating that vehicle after 15 years, and it should only be reserve status up to 20 years. And in 2026, it'll be the 20-year reserve life. So it's just not a safe thing to operate. It hasn't been refurbed, hasn't been overhauled. The cost of that is too great to do. The turnaround time on an apparatus like this is between 3 and 4 years. The last one we purchased in 2022, we just received last August. So it is a long build time. The spec time is another 6 months on top of that.
Any projected resale costs?
The resale costs are pretty low. On this vehicle here, we're probably looking less than $15,000.
Okay. All right, discussion. Counselor Peeler, Counselor Lavin.
I have a quick question, because replacement of vehicles is something that we consider regularly, and it's important, because it's for the safety of the residents and the staff who are operating them. And was there, if you had to summarize the impact of protruding this replacement as far as we did, like, for example, hypothetical, if we were to move the sale of this vehicle, roll back the hands of time, say 3 years ago, what would be the impact on the resale value? Like, did we miss the boat in auctioning this thing?
I don't think we necessarily missed the boat in auctioning it. I think the resale value on fire engines, especially that have not been rehabilitated or up to current safety standards, the resale value just stays low.
Okay.
Every department you're going to sell this to, unless it's in an industrial market or an agricultural market, you're not going to see a resale value because they're going to run into the same problems that we will.
Okay.
They fall into the same national standards for replacements of apparatus.
I bring that up because I think those topics help us make decisions.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Counselor Lavin.
Chief, this money would come from the CBDG?
Up to $1 million.
Right.
At a minimum, we have a $100,000 cost sharing, and we're projecting 1.1 to 1.2 million. So
Is that a likely win?
So, yes. Likely as anything is likely right now. Remember, federal fiscal years and state fiscal years are a little different. And so we're starting the new state fiscal year, and they've already received the federal funds for current state fiscal year. So when you hear the discussions about CDBG funds being cut, that's in future for the state, current future federal, future, but we should be fine for this 1 year. I always do that with kind of an asterisk, because at any time, any government, and I'm sure experienced it in the city of Geneva, can say, you know what, we're going to claw back that money we already gave you. And that's happened before. It could happen again. But I do feel confident, because the state already has CDBG funds, that the ones the state is then moving on should be available.
Do we have any other competing needs that money could be eligible for, or is it stuff that's held to fire uses? Or
It's not held to fire uses, but it's up to $1 million. And we spoke with our CDBG representatives and discussed different projects. That is the clearest project, because otherwise you're going to be parceling together small projects that won't get you there. And so because we want to get this funding in as quickly as possible, this makes the most sense. This is also something that has been delayed from our capital plan for multiple years now. So this gives us a way. The goal with putting this forward is it gives us a way to relieve the capital plan, hopefully, and move this ahead.
Chief, I'm proud of our department, so don't forgive me this question, but we have a small city with lots of fire operations, 3 in our city, circled in the town. Is there a vehicle within the mix that could play this role without purchasing a new one now?
Yeah.
If we joint came together and said, let's share.
yeah, thank you for that question. We do, and we'll get onto the topic of mutual aid here shortly tonight. But in regards to this vehicle is already listed as a reserve apparatus. And to what Councilor Peeler was saying about the safety of the citizens and safety of staff, there's another component to that, which is the insurance rating of our city. And we have to have this many apparatus to maintain our current insurance ratings.
But is the town sitting on a newer version of this right now that
I couldn't say that they're sitting on a newer version of it, but their apparatus are already in that calculation into our insurance services ratings. So we can't borrow a piece of their equipment to backfill ours in that matrix, if that makes any sense.
Great, thank
And
you.
if you'd like to discuss, I can go over it with a fine-tooth comb
Well,
with
the
in
whole,
private. So.
the whole use of insurance rates as a lever for these decisions is pretty esoteric for us at this
Sure.
point. And I
Yeah,
think we need to know-
until insurance rates go up citywide, because we don't make that mark.
We don't know what that means in terms of.
And again, I'd be
percentage per
happy to
hour.
brief you on ISO anytime you'd like. We can go over that anytime.
Counselor Petropoulos.
So, Chief, you say this is a reserve piece of equipment. Does it ever go out in those calls where, all right, so given that, and given the 3-year time it takes to build one. How do you see this piece of equipment doing for the next couple of years? Is it going to fail? I mean, in your opinion?
I do believe it will.
Okay.
It has failed in the past, which is why it was moved to the reserve engine. It's our oldest engine, and it is in the rotation when we need it, when it's there as a backup, when one of the primary engines goes out of service for maintenance or for it's on another operation.
But there is a chance that that engine could be used at some crucial fire
Absolutely,
and fail.
today.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, I think you should have had somebody out front with a boot. Counselor Gilat.
Chief, just to be clear now, you can't, I mean, to borrow from another town, that's not really done. I mean, unless. there's a
That would be
reason-
our backup emergency plan if this happened on a scene today. You know, if this truck had a major malfunction, catastrophic malfunction, we would call in another agency to come help us out and back us up, but that's
Call for mutual aid. then.
correct.
Okay.
But that's not our standing plan, so.
Right.
No further discussion. We will move on. Thank you very much, Chief. Next on our discussion is the Geneva City School District West Street School project kicked off by our city manager.
Yes, and I will kick it off, but I will turn it over to council. There's been some discussion about the West Street School and what the city can do regarding that. And I'm trying to download Director Venuti, who can't be here, did send me a memo talking a little bit about this. He just wanted to thank everyone for their opportunity to share information about the school district's proposed capital improvement project at West Street School. He has taken sufficient time to understand the project. He and I both have attended several meetings with the school administrators, and we've reviewed their draft conceptual site plans, which were prepared by Labella, dated September 2024. He's also provided traffic studies conducted by Labella, dated January 2nd, 2025. He's also reviewed traffic data captured by our own GPD speed radar, and even personally, Joe conducted a peak hour car count on Nursery Ave. He's had numerous conversations with our own public safety, code enforcement, property assessment department heads, as well as visited with and responded to complaints and concerns from residents on or near Nursery Ave. He also sought NICOM past practice support. With all of that said, it is his opinion that this project as presented would not impact the character, charm, and quality of life, economic vitality, or historic integrity to the city of Geneva and its citizens. And he would recommend that we support GSCD to move forward with the project as presented. With that being said, please note there is no final construction set drawings for his review at this time, and that South Optical Street will need capital improvement intention, and the school's attorneys, Ferrara and Lorenzo, provided a letter dated May 27th, 2025, should also be addressed at some point in the future.
Thank you for kicking off, and thank Director Venuti for his input. The floor is now open for discussion on the Geneva City School District project. Do I want to read it into record? Yeah. So, I can start. So we received a letter from the legal that supports the Geneva City School District. And what it reads is, in representation of the Geneva City School District in connection with various matters, including current construction project. This letter outlines the procedural context of the project and addresses the city's recent request for district funding related to improvements to Optical Street, which Director Venuti just mentioned, and the requirement that the district obtain city planning board approval. First and foremost, the district has followed all required procedures for the approval of this construction project. It was approved by the large majority of the district voters at 82% in a recent referendum, and has received all required approvals from New York State Education Department. As such, the district has carefully followed the required process, obtained all required authorizations and permits needed to move forward, and will not seek additional approval from the city planning board. With respect to Optical Street, the district cannot allocate public funds towards the repair and maintenance or improvement of the property it does not own. The responsibility for maintaining Optical Street lies with the city. Public school funds must be used for school purposes only on school-owned property. It is also important to note that the district construction project will directly benefit of city and local residents. The relocation of the bus loop, a key feature of the project, will alleviate traffic congestion along West Street, improving safety and access of nearby residents. Delaying or obstructing the project is counter to the will of the large majority of the voters, and also jeopardizes timely improvements to the area's transportation infrastructure and overall safety for those residents living on West Street. There is no basis for the city to deny or delay the project. The district is obligated to move forward and will do so if necessary. It's prepared to litigate any attempt to the city to derail the project or delay its progress with unnecessary hurdles. I do, and this is signed by Ferrara Forenza PC, David E. Tinker, and copied Bo Wright and our director. You know, this kind of communication is disappointing, in my opinion. It's like drawing a line in the sand, saying, city, we're going to do this. You can't stop us from doing this, and if you do try to stop us from doing this, we're going to bring a lawsuit to you. To me, that's not kind or polite or professional in many ways. It is what it is, though. And, you know, we sit here on this council, and many of us have received phone calls and visits from constituents in that area who don't want the fabric of their neighborhood interrupted with this. We've also had major discussions about the actual school in that facility and the school's opportunity to expand in other areas, which in many people's opinions makes more sense. So we are in a frustrating position. We'd love to do something, but in many ways our hands are tied. So I'll stop my frustrating conversation at that point and open up the floor for any further conversation. If not, I will move on. Oh, Counselor?
I thought there was an issue that schooling had to have a certain amount of green space. Has that issue been addressed?
What was that?
Schools, because they're taking away some of the green space, we were under the understanding that districts had to have so much green space in their property, so to speak. I thought we raised that at one of our meetings, and you were gonna check on it.
So their plans are approved by New York State Department of Education, who would ensure that met those requirements, and it does meet those requirements.
Counselor Peeler?
2 questions. One of them was, so in the discussion that we had last time, I grew up in that area, and I was under the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, I did ask for clarity, that there isn't a portion of that area that's considered a park. Because when I grew up in that area, it was a park. It had a baseball diamond, it had a backstop, we did Little League there, so, and we always called it West Street Park, even though it was West Street School's, lot. So was there clarity on that?
So it's part of the school district's property,
Okay.
and so it goes under that nice.
So it's not like, there's not like a section or a wedge of that property that's considered a playground or a park, that's the city's?
Nope, it's not city-owned, so it doesn't
Okay.
have that barrier.
And my second question was about the design and the presentation. I was under the impression that the design was about moving parent pickup traffic.
I believe so. I don't have the design
So
in
the-
front of me.
Yeah, the reference to bus loop was on West Street, so the parents' pickup is off of Nursery.
Right, but they said relocating the bus loop was an integral plan. So if the plan is not about relocating the bus loop, but the legal letter was. And to me that's a little bit confusing, because our assessments were based on how the parent pickup was going to impact the neighborhood, while the legal letter is kind of maybe letting the cat out of the bag, that maybe they do plan on moving everything over to Nursery Avenue.
You are correct, that's what the letter says, and I can't clarify that for you.
Yeah, so I think we should just get clarity on that, just as a community in general.
And we don't, as Joe's message had said, we don't have those final designs, so.
Right.
Counselor Lavin?
Just to, if you want to feel better about this outcome, when we have tensions between municipal and school things, it's that for those of us who've been fighting that traffic for trying to get kids to school, and I've been in it in my own little bus for 10 years, it's dangerous. The kids' lives are at risk. The school is disrupted in the way it operates. And while we're a city council and we're not responsible for the schools, our schools are challenged. North Street and the middle school and the high school all remain on watch lists for the state. Their academic performance is part of the difficult part of economic development in this town, it really is something we should all work together. West Street is one of the best performing schools, despite what's a daily mess that again threatens us and has cost me hours of my life. Nah, I don't care about it, but it's the danger of a school that people used to walk to school, as Councilor Peeler points out, and it, 40 years later, it's a change. But I also think the people in the neighborhood, probably 90% of the people, have moved into that neighborhood knowing that there was a school there, and that there's some long time probably people who preceded when the school was not even there yet, but just a few. It's not like they're being thrust into a major new innovation. I think this is one where we should be proud that we're going to improve the school greatly by taking it on the chin a little bit from a lawyer.
Councilor Peeler.
I also have to be clear, I live adjacent to the current bus area. So it's in my best interest and the best interest of my family to move this blood clot out of this current capillary. But I remember when this was presented to the communities, a decade ago? And it was, to use the analogy of the blood clot, right now the current blood clot is in a vein. It's in some capillaries. It's in a less trafficked area of the community. And by moving this to Nursery Avenue is an artery. And I think to say that there's going to be no impact when you move a clot from a vein to an artery is actually not openly accurate, because it's going to affect more people across the whole breadth of the community, since Nursery Avenue is one of the prime travel corridors from getting anywhere north of Lyceum into our commercial district on Hamilton, which is essentially, Wegmans and the Plaza and all those commercial areas. So that's just it. I'm not shilling for my area to move this at all, even though it would alleviate traffic in my area, but I do empathize strongly with the community members that live on Nursery Avenue, and they have the long view of knowing that this project was met with high criticism before.
Okay. I'll end the conversation with saying I wish they moved West Street out past North Street
Amen.
onto town property and give us back that property to put it back on the tax rolls, but that's a long shot. Okay. Moving on, consideration of meeting minutes, May 28th, 2025, June 4th, 2025, and June 17th, 2025. I need a motion.
So moved.
Councilor Peeler, seconded by Councilor Gilat. Clerk, please call the roll on the consideration of meeting minutes.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is public comment. Just a reminder, those will be called up. It's a 3-minute unless you've asked for more time. And I'd like to keep everything in your comments professional and directed towards council as a whole, please. First, I have Wendy Marsh, and Wendy is requesting 3 additional minutes for a total of 6.
That's a lot.
Wendy's good.
Good evening. I have it written and I'm going to speak fast. Tonight I'm here, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to talk about mental illness. I think we all agree that there's a mental illness crisis in the country. To understand the current mental illness crisis, it's important to go back in history. Those who grew up in the area have known about the Willard Psychiatric Center on the other side of the lake. This was a mental health institution that was closed when the country decided to deinstitutionalize the management of mental health disease. The deinstitutionalization, which means the replacement of housing for those with mental health illness in large institution with community-based care, started in the 1970s and culminated in the closure of the Willard Psychiatric Center and other places like that in the mid-1990s. Why was it closed? Because the government no longer funded those large mental health institutions and instead began funding smaller community-based facilities. In New York State, mental health services are managed through a single point of access coordinator, which is intended to streamline access to mental health and related services for persons in need within a geographic area. Lakeview Health Services is the coordinator for Ontario County, and we all know that county includes Canandaigua. In addition to health services, the single point of access coordinator manages the large institutional replacements, which are called supportive housing. In fact, Governor Hochul's budget bill included significant increase in funding specifically for supportive housing. You have heard about that term, supportive housing, related to the proposed project on the Finger Lakes Times Block. You have heard consistently that 37 beds of the 74-unit facility will be for supportive housing units. So what exactly is supportive housing? What does it mean? First, with regard to the eligibility, who will be in those beds? According to Lakeview, those supportive housing beds will be part of 2 different programs. First, supportive housing single-room occupancy apartment program, which is available for folks with psychiatric diagnosis and low income. Second, the Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative apartment program is available for folks that are homeless or at risk for homeless and have a diagnosis for serious mental health, a substance use disorder, or are living with AIDS or HIV. Both programs require a formal medical diagnosis before being eligible to submit the rental application to Lakeview, which I have a copy of that for you. Why are they called supportive housing beds? The supportive services that will be provided include assisting the individuals to live independently, including how to clean their apartment, make a grocery list, cooking, groceries, shopping, transportation, etc. While Lakeview insists that the folks can reside in the building only if they are able to live independently, as Tom Burrell noted to the planning board, this is a subjective conclusion if the person needs assistance for everyday life. What about the rest of the beds? The remaining 37 beds are available for community members based upon income levels and do not need to have a medical health illness diagnosis. Those units are called community apartments, but the individual must follow the same application process with Lakeview, including criminal background, etc. And I do have a copy of the application for you. Do we really expect the new teachers coming to the Geneva City School District, or nurses, firefighters, or new police recruits will be applying to reside in the new Lakeview lofts? I do not think so. We have heard this project pitch as an affordable housing project, but to be clear, it is not an affordable housing project. Don Burrell said it best during the public hearing to the planning board. We have been given a sales pitch. I applaud Lakeview's efforts to focus on affordable housing angle, rebranding it as the lofts, but make no mistake, the purpose of this project is support community-based housing for individuals diagnosed with mental health illness. Let's turn our attention to the enormous scale of the project. The building will be massive, 5 stories high, over 65 feet, nearly the size of a football field, and it will take over an entire block of our historic downtown with a footprint of nearly 20,000 square feet. It will be taller than any other building in our historic downtown, with the exception maybe of Seneca Towers. I see your eyes glazing over with the numbers. Let's put that building into perspective. It will be 90,000 square feet in context. The building we are in right now, City Hall, is 17,800 square feet, less than a quarter of the size. How about Seneca Towers? That's going to be the same height, similar height. Seneca Towers is just over 46,000 square feet. The proposed Lakeview Lofts building is nearly double the size of Seneca Towers. Guess what the only building in downtown that's of similar size that I can find? It's the Ramada. The Ramada is 97,000 square foot building. This building is proposed to be 90,000. Let that sink in. A building the size of Ramada is proposed to be located on an entire block in the center of our historic downtown, on Castle Street, the street that was the beneficiary of our DRI $10 million grant just a few short years ago. By way of summary, I am concluding. Why am I yapping before City Council? The reason I'm before City Council is because the applicant came here with staff on March 10th, which was a special meeting. There's no YouTube video of the meeting, so I have no idea what was presented to the city, and I don't know what approvals you have over the project. I assume you were given the sales pitch that it's an affordable housing project that will provide housing opportunities for future teachers, nurses, and our young professionals that we want to come to Geneva. Were you asked to give your support for the project at that meeting? Were you asked to have staff move this along? All I know is that the future councils and downtown will need to deal with the impacts of this massive project that will change the trajectory of downtown for generations to come. I remain hopeful that the planning board, the ZBA, and the IDA will not provide the numerous variances and the money needed for this massive project that's just proposed in the wrong direction. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion.
Thank you. Next, we have Dave Linger.
Tag team, I'm here because you told me to be here. I'm also concerned about the project. 3 minutes, but I'm going to take less than that. We've had a couple dozen people speak in person in opposition to this project at the planning board. Many more have put in written opposition. The record is still open if folks have some concerns or in favor of the project. It needs to be heard. But right now, a wide variety of folks, not just those downtown, not just the business district, but the entire community has come in against the project. There is a group of folks that have been hired by Lakeview Mental Health Services and paid to give their opinion. We have tried to balance the record, including by asking Mr. Bruce King, an architect, to give his opinion. I won't read the letter. I did at the planning board. I'll save that. I'll give you all copies. Amy has it already. Bruce comes up with the conclusion that my experience in these projects tell me that the project is too large with too high a proportion of special needs beds. Mr. King has done amazing work in his over 70 years around. Mr. King has done a 19-story, largest office building in Syracuse conversion a decade or more before it was fashionable into residential. He did the landmark building, increasing its size in a historic district, but doing it in an appropriate way, and now we've got Broadway Theater coming to Syracuse. The guy has got great credentials, but the greatest credential is he's a graduate of Geneva High School, same class year as former Mayor Cass. And I think that when you listen to somebody that would not accept our money, would not accept the position of expert, but what he does clearly is says, I am a concerned Genevian. I may not live here today, but I always consider myself part of this community, and he, with his experience with 7 different developers, 2,000 affordable units he put in place in upstate New York, and he tells us, the graduate of Geneva High School, not some hired gun out of Rochester, Mr. Geneva says it's the wrong project, the wrong size, the wrong mix of people. So I respectfully ask that, although there's no request for you to do action tonight, I think the record does need to be clear of what has been said to you in March and what the true facts are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Dan Beckers. And Dan, I'll give you a minute till this paperwork is passed out, please.
Thank you.
How many trees you killing there?
They're making more trees.
Okay.
I'd rather have it electronically, but that's okay. I'll take that, I'll take that.
Thank you. I apologize. Oh, I'm short.
Whatever you send me electronically, I can disperse them on council.
Nicole will need it for the record anyway.
Yeah,
I'll get it.
we'll also need that for the record, Dave, so please send it electronically. Dan, it's all yours.
All right. My name is Dan Beckers. I live at 54 Wadsworth Street. I've lived there for about 3 years. Mind you, this is the first time I've talked in public in a while, so if I stutter, I apologize. My question is to all of city management and honestly to anybody who votes. What are the expectations of councilors when in regards to presentation in the public eye? Bill Peeler, one of your counselors, has took it upon himself to call out the city of Geneva within a Facebook post about supporting Juneteenth and or the image behind it. He posted a YouTube link to propaganda about the holiday. It wasn't to any official site. It was just a random person posting, along with saying how Geneva is cooked. What does it mean Geneva is cooked? Because we have inclusion? Because we support our community regardless of who they are? So yes, I call them out, and I really don't regret it. I personally don't even care that he came at me directly within the remarks that he made because they led me right here in front of you guys. What I do care about is the fact that he made comments talking negative publicly when he holds a seat, and he should be bringing out the betterment of our community. If he does not like Geneva or what Geneva represents, then maybe being a councilor within this city isn't a good fit for him, and maybe he should step down or not run again.
I'm just putting words in my mouth.
Geneva is not cooked. We do have issues, absolutely, just like every other city. Can they be fixed? Absolutely, with the right mindset. Together. But situations like this will bring division among citizens within the city and create the very problems he supposedly thinks already exist. And seeing how I was told that I was going to be able to speak without interruption, we're going to go back real quick because I wasn't going to do this because why? He said, let me go to the Facebook post.
It's got 3 minutes.
Let me go to the Facebook post real quick. I want to need a couple extra seconds on this because I wasn't planning on this part. I commented to him my exact opinion. You're a quack. City official posting this propaganda. Good luck, City of Geneva, for allowing this from your counselor. He replied to me, allowing this, so you are my ruler. You gonna stop me? Voters? With a question mark? How is my very objective and historical accurate description of a Marxist fist propaganda? Can you do more than lob accusations? Can you back it up? Standard Google search, anybody can do this. There's plenty of actual factual websites that give information on this. Anything can be anything. Any organization can have a bad apple or ill intentions. But to condemn an entire holiday is similar to what the president's son said years ago. If you eat a handful of Skittles and one of them is poisonous, do you take a chance? Yes, you take a chance.
I didn't condemn the holiday. I condemned
All right,
the
order.
icon in the advertisement.
Order.
Freedom of speech to
Order.
condemn
Dan,
an icon.
Dan, can you
It's
wrap
called
it up, please?
review of an
Counselor,
icon.
please. Counselor.
Welcome to America.
Counselor.
The fifth-
Counselor, this is public comment. Counselor.
You don't censor me. You don't
Counselor,
censor
this
me.
is public comment,
And as you can tell,
not rebuttal.
and this is how I
Please.
replied to him. I am a taxpayer. I have all the right to voice my opinion. Of course. And question the ethics and morals of the constituents that hold office in the city that I reside in. His reply, of course, I have the right also, but you can support your right to spit venom, or are you just a soundbite loudmouth? Yeah.
Okay.
I provided 3 simple documents to understand and support my propaganda, as you described it. So how is it propaganda, or is it truth that you don't like propaganda? That's it. But I don't understand where I became vile or venom. I called him a quack.
Call me a quack is venom.
Okay.
Counselor, please.
Pretty much.
Dan,
It's the
I'm
definition
gonna ask
of
you-
it.
we're going to end this because it's not productive at this point.
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
I made my point. This
Thank
is what I
you
wanted
very
to do.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to move on to Melissa Killalay. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Order, please.
So, hi, thank you. My name is Melissa Killeley. I'm a resident of the city of Geneva for the last almost 6 years. And my son and I were here last month's meeting. We did not make it all the way through. So we're here because although part of the conversation is a bit moot because it's about Richards Park and the equipment has already been torn out, I wanted y'all to hear from someone who cared.
Great, thank you.
Our school goes to it, so.
Right. So, and I'm really grateful that the foundation, the Park Foundation, has been involving the school now in the conversations. But for me, as a parent, in the few years we've lived here, we decided to move to Geneva because both sides of his father's family are a huge part of this community. And witnessing some of these things, including that last exchange, makes me really sad for the city that we live in. But my reason for wanting to talk is because there is a school located at Genesee and Lewis. Some of you actually acknowledge that, some of you do not. And in the few short years that we have been here, some decisions have been made affecting the school where they're not included or being part of the conversation. The first was the soil remediation that was happening that affected Genesee Park. There was a lot of stalling, a lot of back and forth, and comments were actually made in council to say, nobody uses that park, when in fact those children play in it every day. I have the meeting minutes, so I will bring them if you want them. The second decision was when the FLACRA facility went in on Lewis Street. No involvement with the school. Now, might not have changed the decision to put it there, but it has impacted the school. Can't go to pickup now without someone walking by who is engaging in some kind of illegal drug use. It's a really interesting dynamic to have to explain to a 9-year-old what's happening, because it's just a few short doors down from the school. The third was Richards Park. They play there every day. Never involved the school in the conversation about whether or not there would be anything to replace the equipment. And then it leads me to the fourth one, which is, and I'm so grateful for Dave and Wendy because they show so much like heart and mind and passion around this city, but the new proposed project for Lakeview, I'm confused how many people actually believe that this is an affordable housing project. If you look at the other facilities that are comparable, they're not located in downtown areas. They're located so that they have proximity to the things that residents need, like grocery shopping, for example. How come we can't get creative about using empty spaces, which are numerous, all along Hamilton, for example, to put in a facility that allows people to actually walk to the grocery store? We put them downtown. Where are they going? There's no parking, so they don't have cars. And I don't understand that. But at the end of the day, the way this relates to the conversation which started with this guy is, again, it's blocks within our school. So how is that going to change the dynamic of those children who are outside playing all the time? Kathy put on a great presentation, but I had questions for her, and they would be the same ones I'm asking you, which is, why is this being disguised as affordable housing? Why are there no other creative solutions that would actually benefit the city of Geneva in grand ways if we were to move it to an alternate location? And why does everybody's eyes glaze over when this topic comes up? Because it's something that's going to deeply affect our community for generations to come, as it has been pointed out numerous times. So that is all I have to say, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the city manager report.
And I will have the report in just 1 minute. My computer shut down. Maybe. So one thing I do want to comment on, and I will share with council as well as Nicole, but I did not have for you your monthly data sheets. In those data sheets on short-term rentals, I know that's been a topic that has been coming up a lot recently, and how many active short-term rentals. Active short-term rental permits, or I'll start first with how many short-term rentals. There are 108 short-term rentals. That's up 5 since April 2025. This is through the end of June. This is incorrect. I will give you the correct report. This is not the correct report, so I'll come back to that. As far as updates to the community, today we did announce the new position of an assistant city manager with the departure of our planning and economic development director and the recreation director. It's an opportunity to look at an organizational structure, and with that we'll be looking for an assistant city manager to help oversee some of those operations, and then followed by a coordinator who will also see parts of that. It'll also give an opportunity to bring buildings and grounds and facilities together as all of those teams work together along with code enforcement. So it's a restructure. That position is now posted. There is no additional cost to that position or the other position because they'll be using the 2 previous positions. And it does remove actually a department head level position and has a coordinator position and then an assistant city manager. As part of the rolling vacancy that we continue to have, we are holding at least 2 staff vacancies as part of the 2025 budget process. Our current vacancies are sergeant and a police officer. The recreation director vacancy will soon join that rolling vacancy list. And we've achieved, as of May 31st, 2025, a cost savings of $135,000. Our goal is $200,000. I will comment on the police and the sergeant vacancies. One of the challenges with both of them is if we bring on a new police officer, we have to wait to academy to get them there. Academies are not offered all the time, or if they are, they're not close, and the chief has discretion on which academy we want to use. So that does mean that we are not putting someone in that position until those academies are open and we can get someone there. The other vacancy with the sergeant, because we have a newer force, we have a sergeant exam that has just gone out. We don't have a list for that exam, so even if we wanted to hire someone, we don't have a sergeant candidate yet because it's a tested position. So we do experience cost savings from both of those positions, and it's not that they are not valuable or something we want to fill. We just can't really fill them at this point. Assessed value, we just received, and this is good news, the total assessed value for the city of Geneva in 2025 is $7,037,000, a little higher than that. That is the number that is used to establish the tax rate. It's the total value of all the homes. It continues to increase because our total market value, which means our houses and our property is worth more. We did get notice that our equalization rate is at 92%. That equalization rate means the ratio of the municipality's total assessed value to its total market value. So at 92%, properties in the municipality are assessed at 92% of their full value. So that means that they're under-assessed by about 8%. We'll look at that as part of next year to look at that valuation. One of the challenges with assessment is the closer you stay to that full valuation, you don't have those large jumps. When you get down to like 80% or 70%, then when you have that valuation, you have to make up that difference, and it can happen. Other pieces, just for awareness, budget process is completely in gear, and departments have started working on the budget. We are working to control our costs. The budget has not been growing as a total budget in several years, and we're going to try to maintain that, also acknowledging that our costs have not gone down or stayed stagnant in those years. And so there will be some hard looks at how we do services and how we continue to do those services. Back to the short-term rentals, we have received permitting fees and applications from 56 of those 100 and some short-term rentals. There are 53 known STR properties that have not yet submitted their required applications, and they've received a formal notice to all of those non-compliant owners, letting them know that they have 30 days to comply. At that time, code enforcement officers will begin doing some documentation on those non-compliant properties, and we'll be working with legal on daily fines and other things that are in that statute for non-compliance. I think those are the main things. We'll continue to work on those position postings, and I believe we still have some seasonal vacancies, so please share those with the community at large.
Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business. Our first unfinished business is a sale of city-owned property at 63 Gates Avenue by our city manager.
Yes, so we presented this last month, and it's back for the final approvals to go towards the sale of this property. And it's a lease to own.
I need a motion. Councilor Petropoulos, seconded by Councilor Gilat. Discussion. Clerk, please call the roll.
I have a quick question.
Oh, wait.
Sorry,
Councilor Peeler?
Sorry. I'm looking at two different documents. Goof me up. So this sale is just to open the property for a sale. We don't have a buyer.
No, this is a property that is adjacent to the cracker factory and would be sold to them. It was previously sold in 2012. I'm looking at Brandon. I think it was around then. And so this would allow us to move this forward and complete that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Bronco?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is what we added to the agenda. It's amendment to the resolution supporting the proposed Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad byway. We did this last month, and there's one change. At the second, be it further resolved, is a change, and that change is that the City of Geneva confirms that they will abide by and follow all existing New York State and federal laws and regulations that are applicable to this resolution. And I'll make the motion. I so move. And I'll need a second. Second by Counselor Lavin. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next, moving on to new business. First is an ordinance, the first reading of panhandling presented by Chief Eveland.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. As you are well aware, early in 2025, during the months of March and April, we in the Geneva community experienced kind of a nuisance in the downtown area, the Business Improvement District, with an individual that was panhandling. Just to kind of put this in perspective for everybody, this one individual, we received upwards of 60 reports in about a month and a half. In light of this, the Business Improvement District was receiving lots of complaints from various business owners of not having a statute within the municipal law for panhandling. So what I am presenting tonight is an ordinance pertaining to panhandling, and this is to hopefully prevent the threatening, intimidating, and harassing behavior while somebody is soliciting goods or money, referred to as panhandling. There are certain state laws that we have looked at, such as harassment or the municipal law for loitering, but unfortunately, when certain behaviors are being done with the panhandling, there's no law that does prevent that. So this is what we are preparing today, and I'm prepared to answer any questions for council.
Okay, first we need a motion. Counselor Petropoulos, seconded by Counselor Peeler. Now discussion. Counselor Petropoulos.
Yes, Chief, just so
Microphone, please.
Just so everybody in the room knows, panhandling is a First Amendment right. Aggressive panhandling is what this statute would address. And we're not, I just want to let everybody know this doesn't target any demographic or doesn't criminalize homelessness. But when panhandlers are going into businesses and doing things like that and harassing people, that's what this does. So just to be clear, it's not panhandling, it's aggressive panhandling. So just want to make sure you knew that.
Yep, that is correct.
Thank you. Counselor Whitfield.
I wanted to know, since then, since you've had that complaint about aggressive panhandling, how many calls have you received about panhandling? Well, not just panhandling, but aggressive panhandling.
It has certainly dropped drastically. I probably count it on one hand. Aggressive panhandling or panhandling complaints, this isn't anything new to Geneva. It's not going to go away. It happens periodically. I can tell you in my experience, there have been times in the past where we received complaints that people felt harassed at an ATM machine, for instance. However, it didn't fall under any violation of current municipal law or New York State penal law, whereas this would possibly address that issue.
Counselor Peeler.
Take me into a scenario where panhandling becomes aggressive panhandling.
Well, if you have do you have the notes in front of you, Counselor?
I don't. I closed my laptop just to be absorbed into them.
Yep, absolutely. So I can go through the list for you if you would like. It's fairly brief, but for an aggressive manner when it pertains to panhandling would be intentionally or recklessly making any physical contact with or touching another person in the course of that solicitation, following the person while you are trying to solicit them in a public place, continuing to solicit within 5 feet of the person after the person has made a negative response, intentionally or recklessly blocking the safe and free passage of that individual in a public place while also soliciting. So it's not merely just asking for money, whether it's via a written request or a verbal request. It's placing a reasonable person in fear of physical harm or intimidation or harassment.
Basically, if you don't take no for an answer.
Correct. Yeah.
So, does panhandling include? Thank you. Does panhandling include just mere classic begging? Like, hey, can I have $5? Do you have $5?
Yes.
So panhandling isn't just selling a service or hawking something. It's actually just openly requesting for money for
Correct.
no.
You have a solicitation of money or goods.
Okay.
So it would not be banning that, because
Okay.
obviously that's constitutionally protected acts. It's the behaviors that associated with it.
Okay.
And I would just like to point out as well, this was a pretty hot topic issue for us for about 4 months. We did a lot of research with this. These same statutes came out of the city of Rochester and the city of Buffalo as well. They're experiencing similar issues, and they had a positive response with it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Chief, thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Clerk, please call the roll on the first reading of the ordinance for aggressive panhandling.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan.
Nay.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution approving participation in the 2025 Ontario County Fire Service Mutual Aid Plan presented by Chief Parada.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are seeking approval of the new mutual aid plan that was revised in 2025. It's the 4th revision since 1958. We're seeking a majority vote on City Council so we can sign this. I have to sign it and City Council has to sign it and send it back to Ontario County. The plan serves as an annex to Ontario County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan and outlines the procedures and framework by which fire departments within Ontario County may assist one another during emergencies through a system of coordinated mutual aid. We've participated since 1958 in this plan, and there's not, I went over the plan with a fine-tooth comb, and there's very little more, just language revisions.
Thank you. I need a motion. Counselor Petropoulos, seconded by
Second.
Counselor Peeler. Discussion?
What is the term of this agreement?
The length of this?
Yeah, is it annual?
This is indefinite until a new plan goes into effect. We can withdraw at any time
Oh,
in this plan. We can decide not to participate, but in lieu, if we did that, we would also not be able to receive mutual aid either.
right.
Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution commencing Chapter 111 Enforcement 314-316 Castle Street by our city attorney. David?
Yes, so you had the public hearing tonight and you heard comments. The purpose of your resolution is to declare, or first of all, to order that this building be remedied, either removed or the conditions remedied. The date that is proposed here is by August 1, although that is up for you to decide if that's the date you want or not. If you go forward with this resolution, you will be, in addition to ordering this owner to remedy or remove the building, you would also be deciding that if, in the event that no action is taken by that deadline, that you are authorizing the city manager to proceed with procuring bids in the ordinary course to hire somebody to do that work for the owner. And any costs associated with that, including legal fees and any other consulting fees or whatever it might be, would be added to the property as a lien.
Thank you. I need a motion.
So moved.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Gilat. Discussion? Counselor Morocco.
You said they have it August 1st. Is that if they start the process of actually demoing it or whatever they're going to do by then, or do they have to have it completed by then?
So the way that it's written is that it needs to be completed by August 1. You are certainly free to choose a different date, and there's also the possibility here that Amy in her judgment decides that they're close enough to getting work done that rather than going through the effort of putting out a bid, request for bids, that to let them proceed with that. I mean, that's really, at that point, it'll be the city manager's jurisdiction to determine whether to proceed with that process or not. I mean, we can continue to, we can issue the bids or request for bids and keep the pressure on them for sure. That's certainly something I would recommend doing if they're not, if they're still sort of in that promising phase. So at least we have the power to keep that pressure on.
Council Petropoulos.
They've had plenty long enough. If we can keep the pressure on them and make them do it. I haven't actually seen Mr. Long in a decade. He did our architecture when we moved here. But yeah, apparently the people who own it are represented. So it's not like, they're off somewhere not responding or not. The more pressure, the sooner it happens. And if it doesn't, that's when the hammer falls. We've heard from enough residents of the area. I myself drive by it. I see it's unsafe. And if it's unsafe and somebody gets hurt, who gets sued? So yes, I'm definitely in favor of this.
No, I'm sorry, not at this point. So we've heard about this long enough. We've had to live with it long enough. And we've given enough chances and opportunities. We heard it from the architect tonight that he was very grateful that we've been good up until this point. I think the August 1st deadline is very proper. Councilor Brennan.
I simply wanted to, think there's no question that we're going to proceed with the Chapter 111, but I would like to ask the city manager that code enforcement absolutely strictly follow the timelines that we establish. Not one day lost. The pressure has to stay on. Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Whitfield?
Aye.
Councilor Morocco?
Aye.
Councilor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Councilor Gilat?
Aye.
Councilor Peeler?
Aye.
Councilor Lavin?
Aye.
Councilor Brennan?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Moving on to boards and commissions appointments. Do we have any? Okay, that makes that one easy. Next, we have mayor and council reports. I'm going to start with the birthday boy, Councilor Gilat.
Birthday boy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My wife's loving this right now. Anyway, okay, the police board, budget review board has not been meeting. We've had difficulty with coordinating everybody there at the same time. Anthony Noon's very desperate to get a meeting going again, so we expect to meet, I think, next week. Yes, sir. Yeah, so we should get that going again. Geneva bid, a couple of events coming up. July 4th, first Friday is this Friday. The Zide Corp will be playing live from Linden. Exhibit opening Kinetic Illusions at the Dove Block Project with live music by Trevor Donlin. I probably butchered that name. But July 5th, Paddle Fest at the Castle Creek Beach on the lakefront. This is a family day for those who have never paddled and who wish to see what all the excitement is about. There will be information, demonstrations, and presentations, boats, adaptive boats, and gear will be provided. That's at the Castle Creek Beach on the lakefront. July 5th. July 12th, Art Walk in downtown to celebrate Ironman weekend. And July 14th, Music Monday with free events from 5 to 8 in Bicentennial Park. Super light acoustic band is playing. There will be food vendors and farm stands. Also bring to your attention that if you go on to the Geneva Bid site, they have more detail of everything going on for the whole month of July. There's a lot of activities, a lot to do, and hopefully residents as well as visitors take advantage of it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilor Petropoulos. We'll go around this way and then we'll go this way.
Okay. Just a few things. The LDC met today, and they're going to be funding a lot of little projects. I'll save one of them for last. Among the projects they are funding, the Hildreth Hills Neighborhood Association is the pumpkin roll that they have every year, and everybody comes to that. They want to make this like everybody come. So the LDC is being really generous. The next neighbors meeting is going to be Tuesday, August 8th. August 5th. I'm sorry, I'm looking at 0805. August 5th, 6:45 to 8 at the Bizzuto Center. I recently met with Gabriella D'Angelo and our city manager about specifically about Richards Park and what can be done and when it can be done and how it could be done. So Gabriella D'Angelo from the Geneva Parks Foundation kind of ran with the ball. We both toured Richard Park. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't been there ever. I actually saw it. It's a beautiful little park. It's well mowed. And what the LDC was able to do is fund the Adirondack chairs, which they're going to be basically chained around the tree, similar to the ones at the lakefront. There's going to be an extra trash bin, a mini library, and hang on, give me a minute, and a dog station, if you know what I mean. As far as playground, we're also looking into the playground equipment will come when the rec department submits, or is it Rec or Buildings and Grounds that submits those?
It's all going to be one.
All right. Yeah, you know what I mean. So we're going to be looking at that next, and I finally found out what Gaga Ball is. I had no idea. I'm used to stickball or dodgeball. It's modified dodgeball with a bounce or something. But there are 2 pits there, one of which they want to use as a Gaga Ball pit, and I don't see that as being a big deal. And there is a survey going around in the neighborhood, as there will be in other neighborhoods where there are other parks. The survey is online. It basically asked residents what they'd like to see. There was a couple there, and they had a little infant, and something for the kids was their answer. So that ball's rolling. And the last thing I'm going to mention is, the picnic table at the park, too. There was a picnic table at Richards Park. Apparently, that table has been donated to the school district, to the LDC is going to look into what another one looks like. So ball's rolling. Last thing I'd like to announce is this Saturday, July 5th, at the Smith Center for the Arts. My old unit, the 198th Army Band, will be playing a free concert. Come on down, bring family, friends. If you got young folks, my former commanding officer, who I now outrank in retirement, requested bring young folks. No, they're not going to actively recruit anybody, but they do want to impress upon the young folks what Army bands do. So come if you like, it's free, and that's about all I got. Thank you.
I heard Council Petropoulos is going to sing at that one, so that'd be nice.
Probably play drums.
He's going to dance.
Council Morocco.
No, I don't dance.
Just a couple things in Ward 6. The Dunkin' Donuts project had a little snag with some underground work again. They ran into an unmarked Verizon duct bank, but I guess they've resolved the issue at this time, and work has resumed. There's no specific date for opening, but the goal is still in 2025. Also, the Cook properties. These are the 4 modular homes that were planned on Hallenbeck and Middle Street. They've completed phase 1 of an environmental study. They are now doing a phase 2 study. No other information on this at this time, unless Amy's heard anything in the last couple of days.
They have not commenced a phase 2. We're going to work with them on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's it.
Council Whitfield.
Yes, I wanted to mention something that is and disheartening as well. David Lingard mentioned how the wrong mix of people would be coming into this project with mental health, but mental health is real. We have people that deal with this situation on a daily basis, not just people coming from outside of our community, but we have people in our community that deals with this on a daily basis. And to hear you say this about the wrong mix of people, these wrong mix of people are right here in our own community. Also, I wanted to mention that there are, if you don't look at the studies, there's people that need affordable housing. There's people that are homeless in our community. 18% rate in Geneva. This is over 1,000 people that are homeless right now. People, you mentioned that people all over the community doesn't want this project, but in what community are the people not wanting this project? Because in the community that I know, in my community, this is an ongoing thing. This is an ongoing matter where people are dealing with mental health. There's people that are oppressed. There's people that are homeless. There's people that are in need of this type of building. And I think it's actually a great thing. People want to shun upon this, but these things are real in our city. And for someone that owns almost half of Geneva, you know, that it's disheartening to hear. But this also goes along with certain powers that may be. Also, I don't know who mentioned this about Richards Park being a playground where no one plays or no one goes to, but it's disheartening to hear this as well, because that playground is one of the playgrounds that, as I was growing up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people in our community can attest to this, that was the meeting grounds when Courtyard, what is Courtyard now, but Charter's home, would meet up with people from downtown Geneva, or people from uptown would meet up because you weren't able to go in certain areas. So for people to say that this isn't a place that wasn't a place where people would play in the playground, that would come together to play or to be together, this is a wrong statement, because that's majority of where all the kids would go to play basketball against each other. This is a place where everyone would mainly come together because they couldn't be in certain areas. So to hear that is very disheartening, but I agree with the young lady when she mentioned that, those two things, because those are great factors that she mentioned, because those things are beneficial to the community. Also, I might add that I'm going to apologize for the council of the incident that just occurred, where there was a child to witness that. We don't agree with those type of things occurring, and us as leaders, as some of us have mentioned before, we should be aware of our surroundings and who is watching and who is being involved. We have to learn to basically detain and refrain from certain situations. And when a person is given 3 minutes to speak, let them speak, because it's just that. They're able to speak. From the recreation department, the summer recreation still has a few spaces open for next week. The Serpents will be home next Saturday, and youth soccer games have started. And that's all for my report.
Thank you. Councilor Peeler.
Thank you. So the planning board did meet last month, and it was a fiery meeting. Most of the public comment was overwhelmingly in opposition to the Finger Lakes Times project, the building project. And the theme of nearly every comment, which I 100% share their opinion of those comments, is that no one was formally against any type of mental health treatment. There was some narratives going around, sadly, accusing people in the room that they were, acting out of cowardice and fear. And I thought that was a bit of a bully psychological tactic to silence people who just have concerns about putting a mental health facility in the heart of our commercial and vibrant historic district. There was no movement on the seeker, and that's being delayed, and public comment is still open, and that was the result of that meeting. On the topic of that meeting, I think it's important to note, even though some people think anything can mean anything, that some things actually do mean things, and they're called facts. And one fact is that Geneva doesn't have 18% homeless people living in our community. What we have is an 18% poverty rate. And that is not the same thing as everyone not having houses. So I want to make sure that the demographic record is set straight. And just because people say things doesn't mean that they're actually true. Those demographics are very important to know. We have an 18% poverty rate. And on the topic of mental illness and how just one person can create 62 calls of aggressive panhandling, I think it was last week, I was leaving for work, and I had an individual come approach me at the stoop of my house on tiny little Jefferson Avenue. And they had both fists clenched, and they came right up to me and they asked me for money. And I said, I don't have any cash on me. And he didn't take no for an answer. He looked right at me and said, how come all you people with the American flags on your front porch don't have any money for anyone? And I felt a little intimidated. I felt like, okay, my patriotism is being, called into question. And I'm also being accused of being stingy, which I am not. I am not stingy. If you've ever been to one of my parties, I'm a good host. So I think it's important to note, and then I told some people on my Little League team about it. They knew exactly who the person was. This person is suffering from a mental health. This is a mentally ill person. So now we're building a facility in the heart of downtown that's going to have a lot of mentally ill people. And those people are suffering. And those people are not, they're not in jail. They're not locked in that building. So there's going to be cause and effect from bringing that environment and expanding that environment in our commercial district. And I just don't know how it's beneficial for residents and tourists and businesses and anyone else that's going to be down there. Right? Round peg, square hole, it's a duck quacks, call it what it is. And I think that's important to note because we shouldn't just say things that mean whatever we think it means in the moment. Thank you.
Council Levin.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's early July, and in September we'll get a city budget, and we'll have about a month to look at it in the traditional way we do things, even though I give the city manager great credit for trying to pursue a more open, advanced approach to the budget. But I still think that we do it backwards, where we add to the load from the year before, and the taxes continue to go higher. And I believe, and there'll be differences of opinion on this, but I believe that we are at a tipping point where you hear the needs of the community that can't be addressed because of the finances of the city in the way we do finances. And the assumption is that the way we do it is the only way to do it. And the only effect that we're just victims of nonprofit properties, and we've heard all the stories. So over the next few days, a number of us have taken the step to make a proposal to, I think, recast the discussion on the budget this year with a goal of reducing the levy, the amount of money we take from the taxpayer in the next year by 10%, about $900,000. And we are giving a series of examples of things we can do to be more aggressive with the town, more aggressive in our own accounting for the spending to reach that goal. And I think that the debate and the discussion, the yays and nays, I've lost a lot of votes this year, and I don't mind to lose more. But I think we do have to come to grips with the fact that seniors are increasingly once they lose the income that they can take their state and local taxes against, it becomes a very expensive place to live. Our taxes for a nice home, yes, the values have gone up, but it doesn't really change the fact that it's a place you live in and you don't have necessarily the income to take those new taxes. I know the mayor has different views, and I think we should have this, but I'd like to see those discussions, and why we're bringing it up now. See those discussions, the macro discussions about policy and direction for the community now, rather than raced into a 2-week period late in the fall when we're under position to approve a budget, and we get into big, deep arguments about which department gets their truck. We really have bigger issues to deal with here in the community. Seniors are being pushed out. The poor are being pushed out. We're giving away homes to investors for Airbnbs. The mix of the community is changing. And I think these are the things that the council should be addressing and finding ways to take on with more aggression. We still live in a community in which the people live in a circle around us and don't contribute to the services that they benefit from in Geneva. And we have to find ways, aggressive ways, with water and sewer taxes, with the way we get into the weeds as a council, to see that we can make things more equitable. So you'll see things pushed forward by a group of us, and we may get the votes, we may not. and we have difference of opinion on the council, then that's fine. That's the nature of, as you've seen tonight, there's venom in the community sometimes even. So I love that we have great public services, like a great fire department. I'd love to see their boundaries extended to the school district boundaries and have those communities contribute to that kind of professionalism that we execute here. Same the water and sewer that we manage to build, maintain, and I'm not sure that we get paid enough from the communities around us that use those services to build their own development, while our city manager and others are working hard for them. And I think we can get more support from those things. And I think we have to be pushier and in a loving way. Mark Venuti is one of my best friends. He's the town supervisor in the town of Geneva. But I will push him and his council to take a harder look at what their responsibility is to a community, a single community that can do better by everyone. I don't really love to see seniors have to move because 75% of their Social Security is going to their taxes. That's where Canada was being populated with Genevans who wish they could have stayed home. So I'm just saying that we can fight about these things, we can be civil about it at the same time, and we can disagree, and we can learn. But you will see, I hope, a different approach so that we're not sitting here in September arguing about a plow truck, whatever that is, and we're not addressing the slow burn in this community of our housing stock, houses being boarded up in a housing shortage. That tells you something about the basic economics of where we are, and I think we need to address it. I think it's a fire that's burning. But I thank you for listening to my epistle, but you'll see something in the paper. Several council members have signed on to it as a goal to change the discussion over the next few months. And I hope we can get to a better place come September.
I'm gonna have to put something new on the agenda for mayor and council reports to add just regular discussions. Council Brennan.
Well, I've got good news and I got bad news, I guess you could say. The good news is the Historic Districts Commission did not meet there. That's the end of that report. The ZBA did meet, and they're wrestling still with a 1019 Lagland Road zoning issue. They met just once, but it was a good, solid discussion. Mr. Howe kept everything on track, very productive. They will meet again. Nothing is settled. The Shade Tree Committee did meet, and they simply are going about their business as they always do. They're keeping everything running, if you will. I won't go into the details, but again, the good news is that Mr. Burrow contributed $435.
It's amazing.
To the Shade Tree Committee, or to the general fund, if you will, and he's at $16,682.
For the year?
Yep, that's right, for the beginning. And I just love it that he sells firewood in the middle of summer, but it doesn't, I don't know how he does it,
For
but
campfires.
he does it all the time. The bad news is that, and I, with all due respect to my fellow councilors, I voted nay on the panhandling ordinance, not because I don't think it's a good idea, and especially to you, Mr. Petropoulos. I know you've put a lot of time and effort into this. Of course, so did the chief. But I'm bothered by any given ordinance or any given legislation that this or any other council creates that's almost impractical or impossible to enforce. And I'm going to segue into the short-term rental ordinance, which we spent a great deal of time, effort, sweat, blood, and tears on. And we finally came up with what we thought was a fair license price, if you will. It was a per-bedroom price of $250, but a minimum of 2 years. So that's $500 for a one-bedroom short-term rental. And, we were pretty happy with it. But now I find out, it's the beginning of July, that almost 50% of the short-term rentals that are operating have no license. There's no license. So we've lost that revenue from those licenses, and I'd like to know, frankly, what that dollar amount is somewhere along the line. It isn't, again, X number of bedrooms are missing from the license rolls, if you will. And I recognize that, non-compliance property owners have been given a notice by code enforcement, but it's going to be a real slog collecting fines. I think, Mr. Howe, that's going to be something that would have to go through city court, yes? Per person, per property owner.
The enforcement side of the implementation of this is maybe yet to be determined.
Ah, yes.
There are a lot of moving parts, including, the role of the police department in bringing the tickets to court through my office, as well as whether or not these people show up in court, and frankly, the judge's inclination to how heavy he wants to go on penalties, because this law does provide for putting repeat offenders or egregious offenders in jail.
David, he's talking about the short-term rental ordinance.
Gosh, I'm on the
panhandling. As soon as you went there, I was like, no, that's not it.
I'm sorry, but yes.
They will not do that.
Although there's some operators I'd like to send to jail.
But yes, there's similar comments, I should say.
Sure.
I don't know why I had panhandling so firmly on my mind today, but I apologize. Yes, so the same sort of concepts that will apply, which is that the code enforcement officer will need to write the tickets, come to my office, and then we'll need to take them to court. And how that actually gets adjudicated over time will depend on whether or not these people show up in court, and the judge's inclination to issue fines. So,
well, thank you.
Same process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. With all due respect, I know that's what I meant about a slog. It'll be many, many months before we see anything, and it's not because we didn't mean well when we wrote the short-term rental regulation. We didn't do a perfect job of it, and now we're suffering the effects of that thing. So. Not that the panhandling ordinance is imperfect. I'm simply saying the impracticality of enforcing ordinances is something that we should always be conscious of when we ever create legislation. But if you would, a city manager, I would like to know what those numbers would be when you can do that. Again, the value of the missing licenses. That's what I'm asking for.
Perhaps by the next council meeting.
That would be grand. And this is just a coincidence that we're kind of piggybacking here, but it's not just the town of Geneva and whatever relationship we might have with it regarding sewer and water rates, but it's also, I saw in the paper, we have an agreement apparently with the town of Fayette.
We do not.
We do not.
We are looking at having an agreement with Fayette, and they've considered that is all to do with the ATAT expansion where they would join on. That's an intermunicipal agreement that we have been talking about bringing to this body.
Okay.
We have not signed any municipal agreements with that. We are waiting on the water and sewer rates fee and study to look at all of the different regional places that would want to opt in for sewer. Remember, there's no taxation on that. It's all fee-based.
Understood.
And so that's what they would do, is be a part of that sewer fund. But that is their vision, and that's the vision that was set forth by our regulatory agencies on where they could go with their sewer project, which they're saying City of Geneva would be part of that.
Okay, well, I think that's good news. Somewhere along the line, we'll learn about it, and I'm sure you're paying attention to it. But that, again, addresses the whole subject, the holistic subject, if you will, of the economics of running a municipality, which is what Mr. Lavin kind of touched on. I, too, would like to try to expand that and broaden that conversation so that this, if you will, this upcoming and this already initiated budget conversation can really cover the big stuff and talk about the hard things. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to start by thanking the DPW, our Building and Grounds crew, for all the efforts they did on the medians on 5 and 20 down by the lakefront. Definitely looking a lot better than it did. I'd like to thank the city manager for putting up with his council. I'd like to, we had a city-county meeting. Councilor Gillette joined that. It was very productive. We go back and forth and talk about how we're going to expand upon shared services, our challenges as the city of Geneva, working with surrounding municipalities, maybe other cities in the county that have the same or similar challenges working with their surrounding municipalities, so we can learn how to have open dialogues that are productive and create efficiencies with shared services, not drawing lines in the sand and demanding. This weekend is July 4th. Enjoy it and be safe, please. Next weekend, on the 12th, Saturday, will be our Fireman's Parade. I invite everybody to come out and enjoy yourself. It'll be a good time. As far as the March meeting with Lakeview, I can tell you what I know. We met with Lakeview, and they did not have to do it. It was not a requirement on their account. They bought the property from the Finger Lakes Times. They have to be able to go through the proper procedures in order to build a building, and there was no approval process by the city council at that. When we talk about the short-term rentals, there's been mention of reduction in fire, police, and code. I don't think a reduction in code would help us as far as expediting anything with short-term rentals. There is going to be an article in the newspaper. You'll see some of my rebuttals in that newspaper or my opinions on the current budget coming. And if we're going to have intelligent discussions about how to implement revenues or shared services and generations, whether it's water, sewer, fire, police, whatever it is, I would love to understand the implementation plan, because I've had multiple discussions with the leaders of these communities, and we are actually building walls instead of building relationships, which is unfortunate. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Gilat, second by Councilor Petropoulos. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.